He possessed everything: wealth, power, and absolute control over reality. But after eternity without fear or excitement, he sealed his omnipotence and entered the only world capable of resisting him. Now mortal and armed with darkness and a scythe, his first real battle begins. Like, subscribe, and let's begin. After the incident in my apartment, I stopped pretending I was normal. There was no point anymore. Reality itself had already made its opinion clear. You should not exist. The strange part was that those words no longer frightened me as much as they should have. If anything, they only confirmed what I had already started suspecting years ago. I was something the world could not properly contain, and once I accepted that truth, life somehow became even more meaningless than before. By my early 20s, I had already experienced everything most humans spend their entire existence chasing. Wealth, influence, luxury, pleasure, admiration. Reality handed me every desire almost the moment it appeared inside my mind. I owned penthouses in cities I barely remembered visiting. Companies made me richer faster than I could spend the money. Politicians invited me to private dinners, despite knowing almost nothing about me. Celebrities wanted to meet me simply because other celebrities already did. The world behaved like it had collectively decided I mattered. At first, I enjoyed it. How could I not? I was still human back then, at least partially. I liked expensive watches, absurdly fast cars, private beaches, luxury hotels overlooking entire cities. I liked attention. I liked hearing people speak my name with admiration in their voices. And women were probably the worst part. Not because of them, because of me. No relationship ever felt real. Every conversation flowed perfectly. Every moment unfolded exactly how I wanted without effort. Arguments resolved themselves unnaturally fast. People forgave me too easily, trusted me too easily, loved me too easily. Nothing resisted me. And eventually, that destroyed my ability to feel attached to anything. Do you know what gives love value? Uncertainty. The possibility of rejection, the fear of losing someone. Without those things, emotions become hollow performances. I learned that lesson while lying awake beside someone whose name I can barely remember now. She was beautiful, intelligent, calm, the type of woman most men would have destroyed their lives to keep beside them. And while she slept against my chest, I remember staring at the ceiling with one horrifying realization repeating endlessly inside my head. This feels fake. Not the relationship. Reality itself. The world constantly adjusted itself around my desires so perfectly that even emotions stopped feeling authentic. Every interaction became predictable before it happened. Every conversation followed invisible patterns already decided in advance. Life no longer surprised me. It obeyed me. And obedience is boring. That was the true curse of omnipotence, not loneliness, predictability. By 23, boredom had become physically painful. I traveled constantly trying to escape it. Tokyo, Paris, New York, Dubai, Rome. Entire months blurred together inside private jets, rooftop parties, luxury suites, and empty conversations I forgot almost immediately afterward. Every city eventually looked the same. Every human desire repeated itself endlessly. Money, pleasure, power, recognition, fear, love, hatred. Humans spent their entire lives chasing the same patterns with slightly different faces. And the worst part was that I had already obtained all of it. One evening during a private gathering somewhere in Monaco, a billionaire asked me a question while staring at the ocean beyond the balcony. "What's your goal now?" I remember almost laughing. Goal? How was I supposed to answer that? What goal can exist for someone who cannot fail? I gave him some vague answer about investments and future projects because that's what people expected to hear. He nodded like I had said something profound, while casually holding a glass of wine worth more than most people earned in a month. But internally, I felt absolutely nothing. That became increasingly common. Nothing excited me anymore, not success, not pleasure, not danger, not even reality itself. The world had become too small for me. And somewhere deep inside, I think I had already started understanding something terrifying. An omnipotent being cannot dream. Because dreams only exist for people separated from their desires by uncertainty. For normal humans, desire creates movement. For me, desire died the moment it appeared. The worst part wasn't that reality obeyed me. It was how naturally it did it. The universe never resisted, never struggled, never hesitated. It simply adjusted itself around my existence as if that behavior was completely normal. And slowly, I began realizing something disturbing. Reality wasn't protecting me because I was lucky. It was protecting me because it was afraid. That thought stayed in the back of my mind constantly after the incident with the televisions. Every strange event afterward only reinforced it further. The world no longer felt stable around me. Sometimes conversations repeated themselves unnaturally. Sometimes people forgot things they had said only seconds earlier. Once, during a meeting with investors in London, time itself seemed to freeze for nearly 3 seconds. Nobody noticed except me. One moment, a man was speaking confidently about market projections while holding a pen in his right hand. The next moment, everything stopped. Completely. The room froze in absolute silence. The man remained motionless mid-sentence while the pen floated slightly above the table after slipping from his fingers. Outside the windows, rain itself had stopped moving. And in the middle of that frozen reality, I heard breathing. Not mine. Something else. Something standing somewhere beyond existence itself. The sound lasted only an instant before the world resumed normally again. The pen hit the table. The investor continued speaking without noticing anything strange. Everyone else remained completely unaware that reality itself had just stopped functioning. But I noticed. And more importantly, something else had noticed me too. After that, sleep became difficult. Not because I was scared. Because the dreams kept becoming more real. At some point, they stopped feeling like dreams entirely. They felt closer to memories. Impossible memories belonging to someone who had existed long before humanity itself. I started seeing structures that should not have been comprehensible to the human mind. Endless realities layered infinitely on top of each other. Universes collapsing and reforming like breathing organisms. Gigantic black oceans containing stars beneath their surface instead of water. And always, the feeling that something was waiting for me beyond all of it. One night, unable to sleep, I walked through the streets of Paris around 4 in the morning. The city was almost empty. Rain covered the roads in reflections of white and gold while distant traffic echoed faintly through the darkness. Normally, I enjoyed nights like that. Humanity looked quieter when it slept. Smaller. But that night felt different. Wrong. As I crossed a bridge over the Seine, I suddenly stopped walking. The world around me had become silent again. Not naturally silent. Artificially silent. No wind. No traffic. No sound. Even the rain had frozen motionless in the air. Slowly, I looked upward. And for a brief moment, the sky cracked. That's the only word capable of describing it. Reality itself split open above Paris like fractured glass, revealing something hidden behind existence. Not another dimension, not space. Something deeper. I suddenly saw countless overlapping worlds existing beyond normal reality. Endless narratives stacked infinitely on top of each other. Stories, universes, entire existences functioning simultaneously like pages inside an incomprehensibly large book. And instinctively, I understood what they were. Fiction. At least, fiction from the perspective of humans. But from where I stood, the distinction between reality and fiction no longer seemed meaningful. They were all simply worlds. Some lasted forever. Others disappeared instantly. Some contained gods capable of destroying galaxies. Others revolved around ordinary human lives so insignificant, they vanished almost immediately into the endless sea surrounding them. And somehow, I existed outside all of it. The realization should have broken my mind. Instead, it felt obvious. Natural. Like I had always known. Then I started recognizing things inside those worlds. Men with monkey tails carrying the names of vegetables while shattering worlds beneath broken skies. A bald man capable of ending every battle with a single punch. Witches playing with reality itself through endless murder games on isolated islands. Ninjas carrying demons sealed inside their own bodies. Pirates ruling the seas despite being unable to swim. Half-naked superheroes saving humanity while smiling for cameras. Creatures capable of devouring entire multiverses as if consuming grains of sand. Knights wearing the names of constellations while clashing beneath divine heavens. Stories. Infinite stories. And all of them felt unbearably small. Predictable. Limited. For the first time in years, I genuinely tried to feel excitement. But even standing beyond countless realities, watching universes unfold beneath me like pieces on a chessboard, I still felt bored. That was the moment I truly understood how broken I had become. Not even infinity was enough anymore. After that night in Paris, I stopped seeing humanity the same way. Not because I hated humans. Quite the opposite. I envied them. I envied how temporary their lives were. I envied the fact that they could still feel fear before taking risks, excitement before chasing dreams, desperation when facing failure. Humans suffered endlessly, yet somehow that suffering gave weight to their existence. Meanwhile, my own life had become unbearably hollow. Nothing challenged me anymore. Nothing surprised me. Nothing mattered. Days blurred together into a meaningless sequence of victories I never truly earned. Entire months disappeared between private meetings, meaningless relationships, and luxury so excessive it eventually became invisible to me. At some point, I stopped remembering where I woke up most mornings. Paris, Tokyo, New York, Dubai. Every city felt identical when reality itself constantly rearranged itself in your favor. The worst part was that I could no longer connect emotionally with anyone. Not truly. Every interaction felt artificial because the outcome had already been decided before it even happened. People loved me too easily, admired me too easily, trusted me too easily. Even hatred became impossible. How could someone genuinely hate a person the universe itself constantly protected? Reality corrected conflicts before they could escalate. Conversations shifted unnaturally in my favor. Situations resolved themselves before consequences could touch me. Life had stopped feeling lived. It felt managed. One evening, while attending another useless gathering filled with wealthy parasites pretending to be important, I quietly left the party and walked alone toward the rooftop balcony overlooking the city. Music echoed faintly behind me while thousands of lights illuminated the streets below. Cars moved endlessly through the city like blood circulating through a living organism. Somewhere down there, millions of people were still fighting for their dreams, fearing failure, struggling to survive. And suddenly, I realized I would trade everything I possessed just to feel that again. Fear, uncertainty, desire, a reason to move forward. That realization terrified me more than anything else. Because for the first time in my life, I genuinely understood something horrifying. An omnipotent being cannot evolve. Perfection is stagnant. Without limitations, existence itself stops moving. Humans dream because reality denies them things. I had lost the ability to dream a long time ago. As I stood there staring at the city, the world around me suddenly became silent again. The music vanished. The wind disappeared. Even the lights below froze unnaturally. I closed my eyes slowly. "Are you watching me again?" I asked calmly. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then reality distorted. The sky above the city cracked open silently, revealing the same endless darkness I had started seeing more frequently over the past months. Countless worlds existed within it, like reflections floating inside an infinite ocean. And for the first time, I stepped toward them willingly. The moment I moved, information flooded my mind violently. Infinite narratives, infinite universes, endless systems governing realities smaller than atoms compared to the thing observing them from above. I saw worlds ruled by magic. Worlds ruled by gods. Worlds ruled by concepts. Worlds where entire universes existed solely to entertain higher beings. And somehow, I stood above all of them, not as a king, not as a god, as something worse, something outside the structure itself. That was the moment I finally understood why reality feared me. I was never supposed to exist inside it. Then, deep within the endless sea of worlds surrounding me, I noticed something strange. One world, different from the others. At first, the difference seemed almost insignificant, but the longer I observed it, the more disturbing it became. The laws inside that reality were unstable. Causality itself seemed incomplete. Certain parts of the world felt invisible even to me. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt curiosity, real curiosity, and buried beneath it, something else, something I had not felt since childhood. Excitement. Slowly, I smiled while staring at that distant world hidden among infinity. Maybe I had finally found something capable of resisting me. Your world is there too, by the way. Somewhere beneath me, hidden among the endless ocean of realities stretching infinitely beyond human comprehension. A small world filled with people who spend their lives consuming stories, because reality itself often feels too narrow for their dreams. Funny, isn't it? You read fiction to escape your world. Meanwhile, I spent eternity trying to escape mine. By the time I reached what humans would probably call omnipotence, I had already stopped seeing reality the same way ordinary beings did. Time no longer flowed around me in any meaningful sense. Distance became irrelevant. Causality stopped behaving like an absolute law and slowly degraded into little more than a suggestion. At first, I believed those changes were accidental. They weren't. The more I experimented with my existence, the more horrifying the truth became. I had no limits. Not metaphorically. Literally. I tested it for centuries, maybe longer. Eventually, time itself became too inconsistent around me to measure properly. I learned that I could create matter from nothingness, erase entire structures of reality simply by denying their existence, and manipulate concepts the same way ordinary humans manipulate objects. Life and death became meaningless distinctions. Dimensions stopped functioning as barriers. Even destruction itself lost meaning once I realized I could simply recreate anything I erased. That was the moment I truly understood why reality feared me. I did not merely exist above the laws of the world. I existed outside the necessity of laws entirely. And strangely enough, the more absolute my existence became, the less attached I felt to reality itself. Physical worlds started feeling small, fragile, temporary. Entire universes eventually looked no different to me than grains of sand scattered across an endless shore. So I developed habits. Human minds probably imagine omnipotence as something glorious, but eternity quickly becomes exhausting when nothing can truly resist you. After a while, I started retreating beyond existence itself simply to think in silence. Not metaphorical silence. Actual silence. A place beyond time, beyond matter, beyond dimensional structure. A space where even reality itself could no longer reach me properly. That place became my refuge. Sometimes I remained there for what humans would perceive as thousands of years, simply thinking. Watching realities form and collapse beneath me like waves rising and disappearing inside an infinite ocean. And eventually, I started understanding something terrifying. Omnipotence is stagnant. Perfection cannot evolve. The moment an existence reaches absolute completion, movement itself loses meaning. Desire disappears because nothing remains unattainable. Growth disappears because no obstacle remains unconquerable. I had transcended everything. And because of that, I had nowhere left to go. That realization broke something inside me. Humans dream because reality denies them things. They move forward because limitations force them to struggle. Fear, ambition, pain, hope, all of it exists because humans are incomplete. I had erased my incompleteness long ago. That was my greatest mistake. Eventually, I stopped observing realities merely out of boredom and started searching for something else entirely. A limitation. A wall. A possibility capable of resisting me. Most worlds disappointed me instantly. Some contained gods capable of destroying galaxies. Others possessed systems controlling destiny itself. I witnessed realities ruled by concepts, universes governed by endless cycles of reincarnation, dimensions where narratives themselves functioned like living entities. None of it mattered. No matter how large those worlds became, I still stood outside them. Above them. Beyond them. Then, I found Nithara. And for the first time in an eternity, I hesitated. At first glance, Nithara looked almost ordinary compared to the countless realities surrounding it. That was precisely what made it terrifying. Most worlds followed visible structures. Their laws were stable, predictable, understandable. Even universes ruled by gods or concepts still obeyed some form of logical architecture once observed long enough. Nithara didn't. The deeper I looked into that world, the more inconsistencies I discovered. Certain regions of reality behaved differently from others. Some laws seemed incomplete, while others contradicted each other entirely. Time flowed unevenly in specific areas. Certain beings existed outside normal causality, despite never transcending mortality. And strangest of all, parts of the world remained hidden even from me. That should have been impossible. I observed stars being born and dying inside collapsing dimensions. I watched realities consume one another endlessly inside the sea of fiction. I existed beyond concepts humanity could barely imagine. And yet, Nithara still contained things I could not fully perceive. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt curiosity. Real curiosity. Nithara itself was divided between countless kingdoms, empires, religious territories, and independent regions constantly fighting for influence. Humans dominated most of the central continents, but they were far from the only intelligent race inhabiting the world. Demons existed as an actual civilization rather than mindless monsters. Different clans ruled different territories, each possessing their own cultures, beliefs, hierarchies, and internal conflicts. Some demon clans viewed humanity as prey. Others traded openly with human kingdoms, or even formed temporary alliances during larger wars. The same hypocrisy existed among humans. Religions fought each other while claiming to worship peace. Kingdoms denounced demons publicly while secretly negotiating with them behind closed doors. Noble families manipulated wars for profit while pretending to defend their people. It was imperfect, chaotic, alive, and somehow that imperfection fascinated me more than any flawless reality ever had. Power in Nithara revolved around growth. Unlike countless worlds where strength was predetermined at birth, this reality rewarded evolution. Talent mattered, of course, but so did experience, combat, discipline, and survival. Mana existed naturally within every living being, though most people never developed it beyond basic usage. Through training, cultivation, and combat, individuals strengthened both their bodies and magical cores, slowly ascending through ranks recognized across the entire world. E rank, D rank, C rank, B rank, A rank, and finally, S rank. Even reaching a rank already placed someone among monsters capable of devastating entire cities or even nations. S-rank beings stood at the level where kingdoms themselves started fearing individuals more than armies. But even those monsters remained insignificant compared to the true rulers of Nithara. The gods and the demon kings. Unlike ordinary mages, those beings no longer relied purely on elemental magic. They possessed authorities connected to higher laws and concepts governing reality itself. Death, space, decay, gravity, chaos, flames capable of burning souls rather than flesh. That was the true summit of Nithara. Or at least, the summit visible to the world. Because hidden beneath the political conflicts, wars, religions, and demon invasions, something else existed. Something ancient. Something even the gods feared. I could feel it watching the world from somewhere beyond perception, hidden behind the unstable structure of reality itself. And strangely enough, that only made Nithara more beautiful in my eyes. For the first time in eternity, I had found a world where uncertainty still existed. A world capable of hiding things from me. A world where danger remained possible. And slowly, while observing the endless wars, kingdoms, monsters, and broken laws shaping Nithara, I made my decision. I would descend into that world myself. The decision itself was easy. Actually accomplishing it was something else entirely. An existence like mine could not simply enter a world such as Nithara normally. My presence alone would destabilize reality beyond repair. Laws would collapse around me. Causality would distort itself endlessly trying to compensate for something it was never designed to contain. If I truly wanted to live inside that world, I needed to become smaller. Limited. Mortal. For the first time in eternity, I would need to weaken myself voluntarily. The thought should have disgusted me. Instead, it excited me. I spent what humans would probably interpret as centuries preparing my descent. Not because I doubted my decision, but because every restriction needed to be perfect. If even a fraction of my original existence entered Nithara unchecked, the world itself could shatter under the pressure. So I began dismantling myself piece by piece. First, I sealed my authorities. The powers connected to higher laws, concepts, and existence itself were fragmented and locked away beyond the reach of my future self. Time, causality, reality manipulation, conceptual transcendence, dimensional control, all of it had to disappear. Or at least, most of it. Completely erasing my nature was impossible. I understood that from the beginning. No matter how deeply I sealed myself, something abnormal would always remain beneath the surface, a residue of the thing I once was. So instead of attempting the impossible, I decided to control the imbalance. I abandoned my immortality first. That was strangely difficult. Not emotionally, instinctively. Existence itself resisted the idea of allowing me to become mortal. Reality tried endlessly to correct my decision, rebuilding the protections surrounding me every time I tore them apart. For the first time in eternity, the universe did not want to obey me. I found that strangely satisfying. Then came memory. Keeping my complete knowledge would destroy the purpose of my descent entirely. If I entered Nithara while fully understanding every structure of existence, every hidden law, every possible future, nothing would change. I would remain trapped inside omniscience. So I fragmented my memories as well. Most of my cosmic awareness would remain sealed, buried beneath layers of restrictions designed to break gradually as my strength evolved. My future self would still possess instincts, fragments, sensations, and impossible intuition. But not certainty. Never certainty. I wanted confusion, discovery, fear. I wanted to become capable of not knowing again. Of course, completely descending as an ordinary human would have been pointless too. Nithara was not a peaceful world. Weakness there simply meant death. So I allowed myself several advantages. A starting point. A starter pack, as humans from your world would probably call it. First, I chose my vessel carefully. An 18-year-old body, perfectly suited to enter Etherian Academy, the most prestigious institution in Nithara. A place where future heroes, generals, saints, royal knights, archmages, and monster hunters gathered from every major nation on the continent. If I wanted to understand that world properly, there was no better starting point. Second, I granted myself affinity with darkness. Not ordinary darkness. The rare elemental branch feared even within Nithara itself. Light and darkness only appeared once every several centuries, often tied to individuals destined to reshape history entirely. Most kingdoms either worshipped or hunted people born with those affinities. Naturally, I found that amusing. And finally, the scythe. Out of all possible weapons, I chose the scythe and implanted perfect mastery directly into my future body, not because it was practical. Swords remained superior in most conventional combat situations. I chose it because something about the weapon felt appropriate. Elegant, violent, final, like death itself given shape. Beyond that, everything else would depend on me. My future growth, my training, my battles, my evolution, and perhaps most importantly, my suffering. For the first time since I could remember, pain would become real again. Injury would matter. Death would become possible. I stared silently at Nithara while the final restrictions locked themselves around my existence, one after another. The process felt less like preparing for reincarnation and more like arranging my own execution. Every seal reduced me further. Every limitation made me smaller, more human, and strangely enough, the weaker I became, the more alive I started feeling. Pain. That was the first thing I felt. Not cosmic pressure, not distorted reality, not the endless silence beyond existence. Pain. A sharp ache spread through my entire body the moment consciousness returned. My lungs burned violently as air rushed into them, and for several seconds I remained completely motionless, staring at the pale blue sky above me. Wind brushed against my skin. Real wind. Cold. Uneven. Alive. Slowly, I raised one trembling hand in front of my face. Human. Weak. Mortal. The realization sent something dangerously close to excitement through my chest. For the first time in eternity, my heartbeat sounded loud inside my ears. I could feel blood moving through my veins, muscle tension, fatigue. Even breathing itself felt strangely overwhelming after existing beyond physical limitations for so long. I laughed quietly, not because anything was funny, because it worked. I had truly fallen. The grass beneath me moved softly under the wind while distant mountains stretched across the horizon. Massive forests covered most of the surrounding landscape, and somewhere far away, I could hear water flowing through stone. Nithura. I had finally arrived. For several minutes, I simply remained there, staring at the sky while my fragmented memories slowly stabilized inside my mind. The seals were functioning properly. I could still feel the enormous emptiness hidden deep within my existence where my former power used to reside, but it felt distant now. Locked away. Sleeping. Good. That was exactly what I wanted. Slowly, I pushed myself upright. The moment I stood, dizziness hit me immediately. My body felt far heavier than expected, limited, fragile, even balancing properly required effort. So this was mortality. Honestly, I had missed it. I looked down at myself briefly. Black clothing adapted itself naturally around my body during the transmigration, simple enough not to attract attention but durable enough for combat. Attached to my back rested the weapon I had chosen personally before descending into this world. A scythe. The dark metal reflected faint light beneath the morning sun, while strange instinctive familiarity surfaced inside my mind the moment my fingers touched the handle. Perfect mastery. At least that much remained. Then, suddenly, pain exploded across my senses. My instincts screamed instantly. Without thinking, I threw myself sideways just as something enormous crashed through the field behind me violently enough to tear apart the earth itself. The impact shook the ground. I rolled across the grass before immediately turning toward the creature. And froze. The beast standing several meters away resembled a bear at first glance, but only in the same way a monster resembles an animal. Its body towered over the field at nearly 4 meters tall, covered in black fur mixed with crimson markings glowing faintly beneath its skin. Massive claws dug effortlessly into the earth, while hot breath escaped from its jaws in visible waves. Its eyes locked onto mine immediately. Predatory. Hungry. Dangerous. And for the first time since entering Nithura, I felt fear. Real fear. The creature roared violently before charging straight toward me.